Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Bellissimo and I am one of the predoctoral interns at the Keene State College Wellness Center. Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to be doing a review of our Managing Unruly Emotions workshop. So what we are going to do is we will be reviewing the first four parts and kind of putting it all together in this, brief quick time, giving you some techniques, hitting on some important points, and all of that. Before we get started on anything, I'd like my co-host just to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Deanna Laziniak. I'm another one of the graduate interns at the Keene State College Counseling Services Department for the 2019-2020 academic year.
Thank you. So before we get started, what we're going to do is we're just going to open up with a mindfulness grounding technique that, again, was in one of the previous sessions, just to kind of bring us into a space to be present and pick up on the important information that applies to each of us. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just get comfortable wherever you're sitting, and we're going to tap into your senses. So if you could just look around your room and identify 5 things that you see. And now 4 things that your body's touching. And 3 things that you hear. Two things that you smell. And 1 thing that you taste. Thank you. And that's one of the techniques that we have taught, obviously. That can be really powerful because it's something that is very contained, that can be done in any environment, and no one is going to know what you're doing as you go through that. Sometimes people have done it and kind of just kept silent to themselves. Other times it can be really useful if you're saying different things out loud. So it's really a personal preference and what you practice, and what kind of brings you down to that grounded level where you're able to refocus all of that energy that's going on as a result of your emotions and your response to things. So as we recap, know that there are longer workshops with each point. So you can go back and review those. And we started this workshop off with really talking about emotion identification. And some of the emotions that we focused in on were anger, sadness, worry, frustration. Some of those more negative emotions that we encounter. And the different ways that those can come out. Sometimes they come out verbally, sometimes they come out through actions. I remember like talking about like getting into an argument with a friend of yours and just having those negative emotions be stirred up and having different reactions to that. Do you lash out? Do your words kind of cut a little bit more personally than normal? Does your behavior change? Do you engage in a physical altercation? Do you slam doors? Do you stomp away? All of those different things. And we really try to look at what is effective when we're feeling those emotions and what's ineffective when we're feeling those emotions. Deanna, I don't know if I'm missing anything with regards to that portion.
I think you covered a lot of it. The only thing that's still sticking out in my brain is just thinking about the way that we kind of like continued to talk about like how we experience our emotions and how to start to work with them and manage them. It kind of came from the space of wanting to almost like slow down the process of your emotion and your experience. And so that's kind of the approach that we've kind of like worked throughout this series of workshops. With different skills and like the grounding techniques that Jen had mentioned and that we did just a few minutes ago. Those are a really great way to bring you back to the present moment and your current surroundings to kind of slow things down. So that way then you kind of have more time to think about and choose more actively a response in those situations. And we had talked about emotions kind of almost feeling like a wave sometimes that we have to ride, especially, when they feel really big, like say like a sadness or a worry or anger,
Yeah.
uh, and just kind of holding that while you can feel it really intensely at some point, like that wave, will kind of hit a peak and then it'll crash. So just knowing that it's not going to be forever and that there are different things that you can do, that you do have like input in how you think and how you feel in
Mm.
that process. So
Yeah. No, and I think that's really important. And I think one of the things is that as we went through this workshop, we highlighted those more negative emotions, and everyone experiences them.
mhm.
And our purpose, for this workshop isn't to necessarily get rid of these emotions or avoid these emotions or anything like that, because we're all human, and that's what humans do. They experience a wide range of emotions. But it's more so, how do we respond to those emotions, and how do we manage them? And you're absolutely right, Deanna. By slowing them down, it does give us more time to kind of like regulate ourselves, so that our mind can say what is going to be the best course of action in this situation. And keeping in mind with one of the examples I used, um, you know, an argument with a friend, you have a relationship there, which is going to like bring about probably more emotions, than, getting into an argument with a complete stranger. And it's going to hurt, and you're going to experience a number of emotions, and you may not even know exactly what you are experiencing. And being able to slow everything down so you can identify, I feel hurt, I feel sad, I feel angry. All of those different things is very important.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we have talked about is mindfulness. And mindfulness just kind of is a practice that brings us to the present. It helps ground us to where we are, and what we're doing in that moment. And it's a practice. It's not something that's automatic. It's not something that's you know easy for many people, especially when you're starting to feel that like heightened reaction kind of bubbling. But it's bringing us into the present and keeping us in tune with our bodies and with our emotions. Um, is that
Yeah. And I think like another important piece just to like add on and kind of like something that we're going to try and gear some of our conversation towards today, um, is about how kind of like this mindfulness that we've been talking about throughout this kind of series, um, and, kind of like regulating our emotions and having like those choices and our input and how we react. It also has a lot to do with kind of like this idea of non-judgment, like that kind of goes really hand in hand with all of these like practices around mindfulness and just increasing our awareness and labeling our emotions, because I think it's really easy for a lot of people, even myself included, to kind of, okay, you notice that you're angry, you label that you're angry, and then I find myself often being frustrated with myself about being angry, and kind of adding that other layer. And I think people do that with all kinds of emotions. Or if, if you're feeling sad and you've been feeling sad for a while, it's, oh man, like, why am I feeling so sad for so long? Or, could apply to any of the emotions that we've been talking about. Um, and I think that piece that then kind of like introduces some extra judgment is just kind of like detrimental to then actually being able to manage your emotions effectively, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the things, we do have the power to kind of regulate ourselves, to soothe ourselves, to turn that mirror almost on ourselves and kind of help us figure out what do we need in that moment. And that's part of what I feel like the mindfulness practices do, is kind of just gives us a moment to check in with ourselves and check in, you know, it's not just with our mind, but it's also with our body. And, like when we look at like self-soothing, like we all have that ability where, like when we're born as babies, we figure out ways to comfort ourselves. Whether that's, through touching, soft things, whether that's, like as an infant, sucking your thumb, that type of stuff. Because it's important to keep in mind that even as we grow, we do have those things that we go back to that do provide us some comfort, that do calm us down, and then we're able to check in with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we check in with ourselves, some of the stuff that we want to like look at are our needs. And um, there's a shortcut of remembering what those needs are, and it's called halt pies. For halt, are we hungry? Are we angry? Are we lonely? And are we tired? I think at any point of any day, we experience those at different levels. And what is that actually doing to us when we interact with people or when we're in certain environments or situations? And then we have the pies piece, which goes a little bit deeper. What do we need physically? What do we need intellectually? What do we need emotionally? And then what do we need spiritually? Again, things that like you do lose track of when you're in your day-to-day, busyness, and when you're like encountering things that are difficult and out of your control. What's kind of contributing to our responses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, like I particularly like that the halt pies, because I think, um, like with the halt piece of it, it's really nice to it almost in a way to me kind of like signifies like, hey, like there's some context, like there might be some larger context that you're experiencing these emotions from, and like all these contributing factors that are really common to all people, can kind of be really big like underlying factors in how we feel. So I like that it's not, to me it doesn't feel like dismissive. It feels like, hey, here's some things that might be underlying what you're going through right now that feel very real. um and then I like the pies piece, because then it gives like the next steps, almost like a little check-in to be like, all right, like what can I do for myself next?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I think it's a way of demonstrating some self-compassion, really, when you think about it, right? Because we all have needs. We all have, different things that come up. And it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal. I think about, the hungry or the tired or the lonely, especially right now with everything that's going on. We all, like you said earlier, we all have these waves of these different things. And what can we do? And it's not a time to be critical to ourselves. It's a time to figure out how we can best address those needs. And not allow judgment to take over and contribute to those more negative responses to these things. And this is where we kind of, when we talked about the soothing aspect of it, this is where we brought in, things like music, um, something that, like creating a special playlist, something that's relaxing, or has a more happy, positive theme to it. Or it could be something that's energizing, like music that's energizing and kind of gets you up and wanting to move. So there's certainly variability. It's not a one size fits all type of approach. Because there are times where we do need that relaxation piece, and we do need to just kind of like let the music guide us in that direction. But then there may be times where we need more energy, and we need to channel some of that energy. I think of when we're people who struggle with depression, and they have that lack of energy, or that lack of motivation to get up and do anything. The power of music can be really, amazing at times. And by shifting it from something that's relaxing, a theme of relaxation, to a theme of like energizing music, could be very helpful in that moment, and fulfilling what we need at a deeper level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, just to kind of like reiterate, which I believe we have done a pretty good job of throughout like the course of these this like series of workshops, is that talking about like self-compassion and mindfulness, like these are all things that are practiced, and it's okay if they're hard, because I think they are hard
Yeah.
for all of us. And so I think just wanting to like highlight the not getting discouraged if it's, if you realize that you are judging yourself for being sad or for being agitated, that doesn't mean you got to like throw in the towel, and, you'll never be able to be self-compassionate or like mindful again. Like that's,
Yeah.
I think just noticing when you have those little opportunities, or when you are able to kind of say, okay, I'm feeling really angry. Let me take a minute and kind of readjust, and
Yeah.
removing that like self-criticism, I think can be really powerful, like in the long run, because continuing with like the wave metaphor, right, like once we experience these emotions, like at some point they're probably going to come back, and that's okay. And if you can practice it in the moment once or twice, then you're going to be more prepared for the next time, and
Yeah.
just like a constant like learning experience, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's why it's called practice and not
Mm-hmm.
performance or game day, or you're not rated on it. And again, we're human, so I haven't met anyone who's perfect
Yeah.
at any of this. And like, because each experience we have is going to be different. We are never going to have two experiences that are the same. You may have similar experiences, but they're never going to be exactly the same. So our responses may be different at times, and the way we manage it, even with these practices, you could become really comfortable with one particular practice, but that may not always work. So that's why it's nice to have a few different in your toolbox, so that if something isn't working, it's almost that natural step of, okay, I've tried this a few times, it's not working. What else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to kind of like throwing tools out to find like that quick fix. It truly is a practice. And and that's the self-judgment, and the practicing, and all of that through the more positive times and the more difficult times. That's where we like start accepting things about ourselves, right? We accept, that we may have certain responses, and we accept the fact that we have these emotions, and these pretty powerful emotions at times. And that's all of this mindfulness brings us to that point where, when we are in a situation and we are in an environment where we're having these responses, that are pretty powerful, we're able to slow things down and look at what we can control, and accept what we can't control. And some of those things that we can't control are our environment at times. we can't control what other people do for as much as we would love to. And for as much as we all say, this person should have done this, or this person could have done this, that we don't have control over that. The only thing that we have control is our response. And just to throw it out there, accepting that we don't have control over certain things certainly doesn't imply that we're accepting of what the situation is, or we're accepting someone else's views. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of giving up. It's just more so accepting what is in front of us at that moment. And taking that time to really figure out what we can do. And sometimes, I know in the previous discussion, when we talked about acceptance and control, sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, and sometimes we may have to say no to a particular person, and decide where we want to put our energy. Is our energy going to be put into like having additional disagreement and getting more frustrated, or is it easier to say, no, I'm done right now, and walk away, even when you're sitting there and you're in that mindset of I know better, or I have a different perspective and I didn't get a chance to communicate that. It's really taking control over the situation, in a way that's going to reduce the distress you experience.
Yeah, and I think with that, we had one more new kind of like breathing exercise that we wanted to introduce you all to, because I think that was everything we wanted to kind of cover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And so with that, this is another kind of like really convenient, portable, excuse me, breathing exercise that's really great. So I know we've done kind of like the square breathing and some other different styles. So this is just another way, another kind of like breathing pattern that you can use in the moment to kind of like recenter yourself and insert kind of some of that awareness and that mindfulness piece into your day. So this is called 5-finger breathing. And so basically what you do is you're just going to hold your hand out, or I mean, you can hold it on your lap, whatever works for you, but just so you can see. So you hold your hand out and you're going to take your index finger of your opposite hand and you start on the outside of your thumb. And as you trace your hand, that's going to tell you the pattern of breathing. So we're going to inhale when we go up, hold the breath for a second at the top, exhale on your way down, and repeat. So then you're going to inhale, hold, exhale. Okay. So I'll lead us through one round of that so we can test it out. All right. So get comfortable where you are. And we're going to inhale, hold, exhale, and inhale, hold, and exhale, and inhale, hold, and exhale, and inhale, hold, exhale, inhale, hold, and exhale. Right, so it's nice and simple, and I like it because you can kind of go at your own pace, and you can make it go a little bit longer or a little bit briefer. So
Yeah. And I think what's great about that one too is you're getting, as you do it, you're getting that sensory response, and you may notice the first time you do it, it's a little bit faster. And then as you go through a second time, and maybe it slows down. So you're getting like multiple points of information about what the practice actually looks like.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that. That was great. And then I think the very last thing that we had was just to kind of acknowledge that there are a ton of resources, whether it's through kind of like online resources or different apps that you can download on your phone. There are a lot of resources out there with these kinds of kind of like tips and tricks um, and different, like guided imageries or breathing exercises or, whatever it might be. A lot of the skills that we've kind of covered throughout this series. And so just to kind of shout out a couple of some of the more common ones that are really readily available. Um, in terms of apps, there's Headspace and Calm. And these two apps, I think they have free versions and paid versions where you can pay for more features if you want to. But they have everything ranging from breathing exercises, guided meditations, body scans. Sometimes they'll have like journaling functions, or even like sleep stories, which can be really helpful. And then there's also another app called Oak, which has some similar functions. You can kind of check in and do a daily mindfulness thing. It has some guided breathing exercises. And then there's also one really helpful website that we've kind of found is mindful.org that has a lot of really great resources. So they have explaining in more depth kind of like some of the things that we've gone over and a bunch of scripts for different kind of guided imageries or body scans and things like that, as well as kind of different articles as well, because I believe they also have like a magazine. So they have a whole wealth of knowledge and information up there as well. And was there anything else, Jen, that came to mind for you?
No, I think the biggest thing with mindfulness is knowing that it's personal, and it can be very portable, and it can be whatever you're looking for. If you're looking to give it more time each day, then there are certainly ways of doing that. Along with just kind of those brief like in the moment types of practices. That's what we've really kind of focused in on with the breathing techniques and the grounding techniques, just those small things as well. So when we talk about mindfulness, it's not, it's not one way or the other. There's a number of different things that you can bring into your, practice at varying levels.
Yeah,
So,
very adaptable.
yeah, which is nice. So that kind of wraps up the Managing Unruly Emotions workshop. Know that we do also run this group at Keene State during the year, a few times during each semester. So if it's something you'd like, more practice in, or you'd like to become engaged in, feel free to reach out to the Wellness Center at the beginning of the semester. And that is a weekly group. Where you can practice these things and actually talk about them with people. But that being said, know that the Wellness Center is open, and we are more than happy to talk with you and help you figure out if there's anything that you feel as though you need from us. The number is 603-358-2200. And we look forward to seeing you at other workshops, and we appreciate you taking the time out today to join us.
Thank you.